So I was sitting around bored one night drinking a big old cup of stupid juice, and I thought, hey, this juice makes me stupider. But what about a show that makes me stupider? And that was about the dumbest thought I had had that night, so I decided to call it there. But the thought stayed in my head. What is the dumbest adult animated show I have ever seen? It's an interesting question, because it doesn't necessarily mean the worst. It doesn't mean the most poorly executed. It means in concept, down to its core, the idea of this show existing is just plain stupid. Now, a few contenders popped into my head. There are shows like Fairview, a show that seemingly confuses referencing modern day things that happened with comedy.
Obviously you have COVID.
This? No, spider bite. 50 of them on my larynx while I was sleeping. Even if I do, I listen to Joe Rogan and I know the best fertilizer to guzzle.
Then I thought, what about Velma? Everyone really hated Velma, and it's true, Velma is really bad, but I don't know if I would call it broadly stupid or even the dumbest show I've ever seen, because in concept, it's not that terrible of an idea. A more adult, grown-up version of the Scooby-Doo gang? Hey, not a bad pitch. The execution was really bad, and really dumb, and really stupid, but it's just not stupid enough. You see, what I'm looking for when it comes to the dumbest adult animated show of all time is something that, when you see it, you think to yourself, is that even real? Is this like a joke or a prank or something? Like, what is this I'm looking at? It's so dumb, it's borderline unbelievable. It feels like something from a parallel reality, because whoever came up with the idea must be so out of their mind, they must be in a different plane of existence. The show can't just be dumb, it has to be dumbfounding, all right? A founding father of dumb, which is not what dumbfounding means, but it's a good way to frame it. And I have found this show. I watched this show 3 years ago, and I mean it when I say this is the dumbest adult animated show I've ever seen, I've ever heard of, and nothing else in my 8 years of having a YouTube channel has ever come close to being as confusingly stupid as the topic of today's video. Of course, today we are talking about Slippin Jimmy.
Hey, Sister B, what's good? Woof, sulfur. That smells worse than the deviled eggs.
Slippin Jimmy is an animated spin-off of Better Call Saul, which is a spin-off prequel of Breaking Bad. However, Better Call Saul feels like it takes place in the same universe as Breaking Bad because the people who made that show actually tried, while Slippin Jimmy literally feels like something that came from a different planet or a different dimension, where the universe of Breaking Bad is, instead of like a crime, drama, tragic, whatever TV show, it's an animated comedy like Family Guy. Except not like Family Guy, because Slippin Jimmy isn't really an adult animated show. There's a couple of adult themes in it, sure. There's a joint that shows up at one point. At one point, Jimmy McGill mouths the word fuck. But Slippin Jimmy is a show that is incredibly childish and immature. It feels like something made for toddlers, made by toddlers. Like, it is that stupid and immature. And we're gonna go through each and every episode. There's only 6, they're only 8 minutes long. Don't worry, not a huge investment. But we're gonna go through these episodes one by one because, for one thing, when I initially covered this show when it first came out, I didn't bother doing a full breakdown of all the episodes, and I think it'd be fun to revisit it and talk about it more in depth. But also, secondly, because there are things that happen in this show that feel unbelievable. And when I describe them to you in this video, you're gonna say, hey, Mr. Cow, did you leave something out here? And I'm here to tell you no. This show was frantically tossed together by the team that worked on the webisodes for Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad. It was something that was supplemental to the series to fill in a hole between the last season of Better Call Saul, because AMC is a really shitty company and they wanted to split the final season of the show into 2 parts. One season aired at 2 different times to really milk audiences' money if they were subscribed to their streaming service. But don't worry, they had something for fans of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. And that's what Slippin Jimmy was supposed to be. It is literally filler. No one that worked on this thing, maybe apart from the animators, because clearly they tried to make it look like the characters were moving around, but I'm convinced no one on the executive level, the management level, no one on a non-creative role on this show gave 2 shits about it. They did not care, and it shows in the final product. So get ready, everybody. We are going to dive dive into the world of Slippin Jimmy, starting off with episode 1, Fistful of Snowballs. This episode is a parody of westerns or spaghetti westerns. It doesn't really matter. The kids are having a snowball fight and Slippin Jimmy must save his friend Marco. And Marco, if you don't know, is Jimmy McGill's friend and partner in crime in Better Call Saul from back when he lived in Chicago. In the Better Call Saul show, he's an overweight con man who robs people and tricks women into having sex with him. But in Slippin Jimmy, he's a fat dumb moron who like eats his own boogers and stuff and doesn't really do a whole lot. He's just the comic relief. Frankly, I don't know which one is better if I met him in real life, but I'll tell you this right now, I hate it already. All right, right off the bat, just have to say this short sucks, okay? It's terrible. I could go through everything that happens in about 10 seconds. Jimmy McGill wants to get in a snowball fight with some bullies to save Marco. He steals a sled, and I guess the sleds are like horses. Doesn't really matter. He rides the sled across the way. He finds like the antagonist of the series, which is this character who's like some kind of bully or something, and he's like, I'm gonna throw snowballs at you. And then his mom leans out the window and is like, you have to wear special mittens for your rash. And the kid's like, no, mom, stop it. I'm wearing gloves and we're doing something. And then that stops. Then they have a snowball fight. Jimmy wins, but then it turns out the guy's still alive and he kills Marco with a snowball, but Jimmy fights back and he kills him, but no one actually dies because it's a snowball fight. And then the episode ends with Marco making a joke about how his mom cooked something with cabbage and it's gonna make him fart a lot, so they have to eat it on the porch.
Ooh, that's a lot of cabbage.
That's why my mom says we gotta eat them on the porch.
That's the story of the whole thing, all right? It's boring, it sucks, it's forgettable, it's annoying, it's not pleasant to look at, and so I want to spend the rest of this segment, because this one I could just say, it sucks, and we'll move on to the next one, which is far more interesting, but I want to use this time to talk about some more broad strokes things that are wrong with Slippin Jimmy, because of course you can already tell the art style here is very off-putting, at least to me. I hate how these characters look. They look so cheap and so grimy. It looks like Go Animate. It's just the laziest designs you could possibly imagine. I hate their eyes. I hate their noses. I hate how their mouths look sometimes when they're talking. Sometimes they put the camera up real close and you can just see how simple and empty these characters are. And it's not just with the animation that makes these characters empty, okay? They don't bother to develop anybody in this show. They plain don't care. And their reasoning for that most likely was because everyone who was watching Slippin Jimmy had probably seen Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul, so they didn't need to develop the character of Jimmy. But here's the thing, this show has fuck all to do with Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, okay? It's completely different. It's just using the name and attaching it to this really weird, forgettable children's cartoon. It makes very little sense as something that takes place in the world of Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul. And on top of that, who in the fuck watches Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul and says, this is great, but what I really want is an animated show I can watch with my 6-year-old that has fart jokes in it? No one says that. And if you are saying that, go to a hospital, all right? There's something wrong with your brain. So that's my main issues here, the stuff that I don't want to repeat for every single episode, all right? Art style bad, voice acting, honestly, pretty fucking bad across the board. No one sounds invested, no one sounds interested in what they're doing. It doesn't fit with the characters too, because if this is supposed to be Jimmy McGill, I don't know why they have the kid from the Goldbergs voicing him, because what the fuck? He doesn't sound or act anything like Jimmy McGill. I don't know what they were thinking with that. Imagine you get that phone call. Hey, you want to be in a Better Call Saul? Oh my god, absolutely. Like, what episode? Who am I playing? Well, you're gonna play Better Call Saul. You're gonna be the little animated version of him. Like, I'd be fucking heartbroken. I'd feel scammed. And hey, speaking of scammed, like, Jimmy McGill is a con man in Better Call Saul, and now he has an adult animated TV show that cons people out of anything entertaining. There's a joke there somewhere, I guess. I'm not gonna find it. It's not important. Let's move on from this episode because the next one, you're not gonna fucking believe. It's horrible. Episode 2, The Exorcister. Cute little title, play on The Exorcist. Would you believe it's a parody of The Exorcist? It is. That's what this one is. Jimmy and Marco get put into detention at Catholic school with a nun who has been possessed by a demon. Look out, though, because the nurse has stinky farts. Oh no.
Hey, Sister B, what's good?
Jimmy and Marco try to send the demon back to hell through a butthole in the ground, and they do it, and when they succeed, it farts. Now, I cannot believe I am about to say this, but I don't think it's completely out of the realm of possibility for a fart to appear in Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul, because believe it or not, one did kind of appear. There's a scene, without getting into spoilers in case you haven't seen it, there is an actual scene later in Breaking Bad where someone takes a shit in their chair in the DEA offices. That's a real thing that happens. If you haven't seen the show, that's going to mean nothing to you. If you have seen the show, you know exactly what I'm talking about, and you understand how that works in the context of Breaking Bad and why me saying that isn't incredibly cringe-inducing. Now, what I've just recounted to you with Slippin Jimmy is someone who either had a massive fart fetish and slipped it into this show and was just jacking the fuck off the entire time as this episode was going on, or they really thought farts were funny. And let me tell you right now, I love a good fart, all right? I think fart humor could work sometimes, occasionally, if it's spaced out or if it's in the right setting, like around people that would really be upset about something about that, and it's kind of a fart at their expense. However, in this context, for what this show has to offer in terms of entertainment, the joke seems to be there is a fart that happens, which to me doesn't quite have enough substance. And I know Slippin Jimmy is a show that has zero substance whatsoever. It is completely creatively bankrupt. It literally exists to fill up time between a season of television that was split in half by AMC. Also, fuck you, AMC. But Jesus Christ, whoever came up with this episode needs to really spend some time looking in the mirror and just thinking about what they want to do with their life. Because this isn't even, I'm not even going to be mean about it here. Whoever came up with this, whoever went through with this, you have to make changes. You have to do something because life is fleeting. And if this is what you're doing with it, you are wasting it. Objectively, everyone will tell you the same thing. You're wasting your life. Let's move on to the next episode. This is where the farts pretty much end from here, which is good. I'll give them that, which is good. We're moving on. Episode 3, After Bedtime. Jimmy and Marco sneak out to go to the midnight release of a comic book that they really love, which is a cute premise. I don't know if it's like a parody of a movie or something. At least I haven't seen that. I think that's kind of the premise for Slippin Jimmy too, is that each episode is a different movie or genre of movie or something like that. I don't know which one this is. It reminded me of Jimmy Neutron, the Jimmy Neutron movie where they sneak out and go to Retroland. That's kind of the vibe I got, which isn't bad. I mean, that's kind of fun. That's kind of cute. They're kids. They're getting, you know, up to kid things, getting into trouble. I don't mind that. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt on that. However, the way this episode unfolds is so goddamn stupid, you are not going to believe it, okay? This is one of the many things that sets Slippin Jimmy apart from other dumb shows. I'm going to tell you what happens in this episode, and if you haven't seen it, I just want you to think in your head, okay, what logically would happen next, all right? This is a perfect example of and then storytelling, because whoever wrote this said, this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens without any thought of why, how, when, or any of that, all right? So get ready, here it comes. Jimmy and Marco want to go to the midnight release of a comic book that they both really love. So they sneak out in the middle of the night and decide we're gonna take a train to get over there to wait in line so that we can be the first in to get that comic book. However, it turns out that the train station isn't running any trains in, you know, the next like hour and a half or whatever. It just, they don't have trains. They didn't think that far ahead. So they decide to get a cab, but lo and behold, they don't have enough money for the comic book and the cab. So naturally, Jimmy thinks, let's use these meat sticks to hail a cab and pay with that. And they do. They hail a cab, they get in, but oh no, this cab is being driven by a sea captain. And it turns out it's not really a cab, it's a pizza delivery car that's yellow. Again, driven by a sea captain. And this sea captain is going to drive the car into the lake because he's crazy and he's a sea captain. But don't worry, Jimmy has it figured out. He pretends to be the son of a sea god. And that scares the sea captain into letting Jimmy and Marco out. But oh no, their bully is there in a bully support group thing where they're trying to work through some of their issues. They get confronted, make a daring escape. They get to the comic book store, which this is the one part of the episode I really like, is at the start of it, in Jimmy's head, there's a line going out the door from the comic book store because it's such a big deal. But when he shows up at the comic book store, it's completely vacant, like no one is waiting. He's the only one that really cares about this comic book, along with his friend Marco, which I thought was a cute touch. But that's the episode. Okay? Now, I don't know if you heard it, but there was actually a sea captain that showed up there for a second, which might be the most confusing thing ever. And if this is from a movie I haven't seen and that you're like, no, this is from such and such movie, it makes perfect sense. It's completely lost on me. In just terms of sitting down and witnessing this, I felt like I was having a fever dream. I felt like I had been slipped ketamine without me knowing, and I was witnessing some kind of alien visit. Like, I could not believe what was happening when I rewatched this episode, because I didn't remember anything from this one. I remember everything about the first two. All the other ones fell out of my brain. But Jesus Christ, how dumb and stupid is that? If this is based on a movie and you're able to get more out of it because of that, great. But I'm saying, as someone that just watched this for what it was with a pretty good knowledge of movies and stuff, I was able to get all the other references and stuff they went for. This was fucking dumbfounding. This was so confusing, so bad, so forgettable, so annoyingly contrived that I just about started to get a migraine. I didn't really fully get a migraine until about episode 5, but good God, what a dumb fucking episode. Let's just move on to the next one. Episode 4, City Flights, the one episode that is actually bearable to sit through, except for some of the animation quality. I don't know how to describe it, but the way Chuck's face looks, which is Jimmy's brother, of course, it's just annoying and off-putting. I want to slap him. I want to slap this animated character in the face. He just pisses me off. This episode's really cute. It's a little black and white short about Jimmy going to get his brother a new radio because he's been fucking up all day, annoying the shit out of him. Chuck doesn't really like Jimmy. It's a whole thing in Better Call Saul. But this is a nice little silent cartoon with a lot of little Looney Tunes-esque moments that I really like. There's one part where they play around with the panels that they're editing with, where it's like, oh, up here's something, and then Jimmy pulls down and he goes through there. There's a lot of neat little visual things for an 8-minute short, and this one is by far the best. I think mostly because they put it more in the animators' hands. They were like, you guys figure it out. Who would have thought? Animators are actually kind of capable when you let them do shit. That's what this one felt like. It felt like the animators' chance to kind of be like, look, we can do good shit. It's these other people who are making this horrible, horrible slop. This is by far the best episode. It's cute. Chuck and Jimmy's relationship is boiled down to something so simple and so basic that it fits into this 8-minute little short, and it's perfectly fine. It still feels weird. It feels very strange for this thing to exist because it doesn't feel good enough to be something made by like a fan, you know, where like a fan makes like a cute little animation. Or I think Jabba Toons did a short where it was like, oh, Better Call Saul if it was on Cartoon Network, which was great. I remember seeing that back in the day. Like, that feels 1,000 times better than this short. But just comparing it to the other stuff in Slippin Jimmy, holy shit, this might as well be a masterpiece. This might as well just be an episode of Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad. This one is fun. It doesn't make me want to die. It's just perfectly acceptable as entertainment. Episode 5, Speed Date. This one I'm gonna speed through because it's fucking nothing. It's just nothing. Jimmy and Marco are on the bus headed to school, and Jimmy wants to ask a girl to the school dance, but she's at the back of the bus, and the bus driver will kick the kids off the bus if they're seen walking up and down the aisle while they are moving. However, there are little moments where Jimmy can go back to try to get to this girl, and it's when the bus driver is reading her bus driver smut book, which while she's driving, that's kind of funny, I guess. I'll give them that. That's kind of a goofy idea. I mean, they don't do anything with it with the animation. I'm now realizing as I give that praise, I was like, how funny would it be if she's like sneakily reading this like romance book and just crashing into shit in the school bus? But they never do that because this show is the laziest fucking thing ever. If you're like, oh, you left this out, you left this out. I'm never leaving shit out like purposefully. They just don't do it. They don't do the stuff that like Looney Tunes would do, or Tom and Jerry would do, or any good animated show. They do not utilize the space of animation in almost any way. This one gets kind of close in some parts. There's like a little action scene where Jimmy's hanging off because he's at the back of the bus. I should say he's racing his rival bully character to the back of the bus to ask this girl out, who also never been introduced. She's just there and Jimmy likes her and he wants to ask her to the dance, but she says no because she wants to ask somebody else for political reasons because she's class president. I mean, it kind of fleshes out some of the other characters and the world of Slippin Jimmy, but this world doesn't go anywhere. And also, I thought the world was already established. I thought the world was Better Call Saul. Like, I don't know what the hell they were trying to do with this, because it's nowhere near as good as anything else I've ever seen that was animated with like a similar premise. Like, I think of smaller episodes of Kids Next Door where they got really visual and they had all these fun set pieces and action scenes and stuff like that. That's what what this was at least somewhat reminding me of in concept, in approach, but it's just the bare minimum. Once again, it's very, very lazy. The line of logic is always incredibly stupid and basic. Jimmy's deciding to manipulate people in really dumb, poorly thought out, contrived ways. I hate it. It's really bad and forgettable. This one is like the least offensive, I think, of most of these, I guess, that I would consider really bad, because the one we talked about previously really wasn't all that terrible, but good God, it's just forgettable. They don't do anything with the premise, and I'm forgetting about it more and more as I talk about it. So let's just move on to the last one. Episode 6, Cool Hand Jimmy. Jimmy goes to Reformation Camp because he's a troublemaker. I think it may be a Shawshank Redemption parody or some kind of prison movie parody. I don't really know. I'll be honest, I've never seen Shawshank Redemption. I never bothered to. Everyone always said, oh, it's one of the best movies of all time. But I like Tommy Boy a lot, so I just never really got around to it. But doesn't matter. The premise of this one is, I guess it's how Jimmy and Marco met. They meet at this camp and they work together to steal the camp counselor's ice cream sandwiches together, because he's hoarding those and he's making them chop down trees and he's punishing them because they're all troublemakers. They do that and it's kind of clever, I guess. There's this one really nice part where Jimmy's like, oh, let's steal a couple of ice cream sandwiches but leave the wrappers and then rip the cord so it looks like a squirrel chewed through it. Then he'll blame the squirrels, he'll see it all melted, and he won't think about 2 wrappers being opened and missing because everything will be melted. That's kind of clever. I kind of like that. The problem is, though, I have no reason to care about any of these characters, right? It's a short. It's an animated short. So if you're gonna give me something in an animated short, it should be fun, it should be zany, it should be crazy, there should be a lot of movement to try to hold your attention. You don't have to worry about character development as much if you're just giving the audience a show, you know, if you have the tap dancing and the action and all this shit. Slippin Jimmy doesn't have any of that. They have the Better Call Saul name and a few characters that share names with characters from Better Call Saul, and then the most basic storylines you've ever seen for children. That's what this feels like. That's why this show comes across as something that feels like it should be for toddlers. There's occasionally adult things like a character smoking a joint, or like we talked about in the previous episode where the bus driver is reading bus driver smut. Like, that is adult content for sure, but if you just take out those small little moments, you could show this to a 6-year-old and they would be just as bored as I was when I was watching it, because it sucks, all right? This isn't something that comes with the name of Better Call Saul being attached to it. This is something that comes with putting in absolutely no fucking effort. There is none of that Looney Tunes charm or Tom and Jerry charm, which I keep pointing to because that's classic animation. Classic animated shorts that are always fun, always entertaining. Even today, if you go back to them, you will have a good time. And I feel like this should have been something like that. Little fun adventures, things that you can just dip into without any context and enjoy. But even going into Slippin Jimmy, even going into an episode like this, which is again fairly inoffensive but incredibly forgettable, there's just nothing to grab onto. There's nothing especially fun about it. It just feels like filler. And as it turns out, that's all this is. Slippin Jimmy is a show that literally exists to eat up time. That's the only reason it's there. Like I've said multiple times in this video, it was to fill in the void between the split final season of Better Call Saul. And because of that, it is by far the dumbest thing I have ever seen in my entire life. Because it doesn't need to exist. It doesn't have to. It just does. Because they needed something in that time frame. It could have been a blank white sheet and it would have been just as effective as Slippin Jimmy. This show is awful. You should never watch it. I am glad I revisited it because I did see a few things that were actually kind of, redeeming. I remember this show just being crammed full of fart jokes. They basically dropped that after episode 2, which is nice. The Chuck and Jimmy episode is still a little bit cute. It's definitely the most watchable of all of these, but even still doesn't hold a fucking candle to Jabba Toons' Better Call Saul, but if it was on Cartoon Network. Like, that is far and away way more entertaining than any of these, and I'm pretty sure it's like 2 minutes long. So just watch that. That's the moral of this video. Fuck Slippin Jimmy. Fuck the people who came up with this. Fuck AMC. This was awful. It still is awful, and it is by far the dumbest adult animated show of all time. All right? If you have a different one that you think is dumber, let me know in the comment section below. But it's a fucking tough order after that nun fart episode, okay? Try beating that, all right? If you can find something dumber than that, I'll watch it and I'll talk about it. But good fucking luck. Jesus Christ. I'm going to play Dungeons and Dragons to wipe this from my mind. Goodbye, everybody.